Hi everyone, for today's video I am going to be doing something that I did once before on my channel quite a while ago, so I thought I might do it again, and that is sharing with you some of the most recent books that I have added to my Goodreads TBR. The first time that I did this, I wasn't sure if it was a very interesting video idea or not, but you guys seemed to like it. I think it went over well, so I also had a lot of fun filming it, and I thought that I would do it again. This is kind of like a prequel to a TBR because these are books that I don't own, and I don't know if I'm going to read them anytime soon, but I just wanted to tell you guys about them because I've heard about these books from many different sources, and for whatever reason they piqued my interest enough for me to add them to my Goodreads. Maybe I'll read them this year, maybe I'll read them 5 years from now, as adding books to my Goodreads seems to go, but I thought I would just share them with you, and maybe some of these will pique your interest as well. This is just going to be a casual, chatty little video. I'm just going to be reading them right off of my phone. Even though I've added some of these very recently, with my memory I've already forgotten what some of these books are about, so I might be reading you the synopsis of some of them. But without further ado, let's just get started. I should probably scoot to the side a little bit so that I can put the pictures of the covers up on the screen. So the most recent book that I have added to my Goodreads is Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. I've actually added quite a lot of Neil Gaiman books to my TBR because recently he has gone on tour. It's called An Evening with Neil Gaiman, and I was lucky enough to go to one of his first stops on tour, and it made me want to read just all of his books. So I added like 3 or 4 of his books, and of all the ones that I added, the only one that I haven't read yet is Neverwhere, which it says that it's the first in a series called London Below, but I don't think a sequel to this book has ever been written, but I might be mistaken on that. But from what I understand about this book, this is about a guy that discovers that there is a whole other city underneath London which is called Neverwhere. I think it's going to be like a fantasy kind of book, but I'm not 100% sure. The next 2 books that I added, I actually can't tell you too much of what they're about because they're both thrillers and I kind of just want to go into them blind, but they're both by the same author, which is one of my favorite thriller authors. So the first one is called The Dilemma, and this is by B.A. Paris. I've read 3 of their other books before, and 2 of them were 4 stars and 1 was a 5-star, and still remains to be like one of my favorite thrillers of all time. So I think of the 3 books that I've read, there's only 2 other ones that I haven't read. This is one of them, and then the other one is called The Therapist. So again, I don't know too much about what these are about because I like to go into my thrillers blind, but knowing it's by this author, I'm pretty confident that I am going to really enjoy them. Next 2 books, funnily enough, I know I said at the beginning of this video that these are books that I don't own yet, but these 2 books I actually do own now because I got them in my Book of the Month subscription. So the first one is A River Enchanted, and the second one is the Book of Cold Cases. So this is a like fantasy book. I feel like it's kind of based on some kind of mythology, but I might be mistaken on that. I don't know too much of what this is about. And then this one is of course a thriller, which again I don't really want to read the synopsis again because I like to go into them blind. But these 2 are also on my Goodreads TBR, and I don't know if I'm going to be reading them anytime soon because there are a lot of other books that I've owned much longer that I want to get to first, but they're definitely on my radar to read at some point. And because both of those I got in Book of the Month, they're both relatively new releases, like they just came out within the last couple months or so. Next up we have a book called The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova. This is well, from what I understand, a retelling of Dracula. So I don't really know exactly what it is about this in particular that I decided to add it to my Goodreads, but somebody recently must have described it in a way that sounded really interesting. But since actually like looking into it a little bit more and reading some of the reviews on here, a lot of people say that it's very like slow and long and dragged out, and it is like over 700 pages, but also it is a retelling of Dracula, which is very long and slow and dragged out, so much so that I never actually finished reading it, which I definitely want to go back and read it in its entirety one of these days because it's like a classic in general, but also in the Gothic genre, which I feel like I should read from. So yeah, but something about this book in particular, it must have stood out to me for some reason, so I added it to my Goodreads. But it is like over 700 pages. Also, apparently it came out in 2005, so it is kind of an older book, but I've never heard of it until very recently. Next up, we have a book called Hide by Kirsten White. This is another very recent release. I think it was actually released within the last week or two. I don't know when this video is going up, but I think it was released in May. And this author, Kirsten White, she also wrote the And I Darken trilogy. I think it's officially titled The Conqueror Saga, but I'm gonna be honest, I've never heard anybody refer to it as such. So the And I Darken trilogy, which is a gender-bent retelling of Vlad the Impaler, and it is one of my favorite trilogies of all time. I think the third book in it ended up being like my favorite book that I had read the year that I read it. I don't remember what year that was, but I know that that was like my favorite book that I'd read in that entire year. This book, however, really caught my attention, not just because I think I'm going to enjoy it because I've liked the author's other works, but also because, one, I think the cover is stunning. I don't know why I don't even like the color yellow that much, but like, you don't see a lot of very like yellow covers, so for some reason it really stands out to me, and I love like the Ferris wheel look and everything about it pretty much. But also this is a horror book, I believe, thriller horror somewhere in there, that is about a game where these people have to spend a week in an abandoned amusement park and not get caught. But I think it's one of those horrors where it's about a game that is a lot deadlier than people first read in the instruction manual. So yeah, I am pretty excited for this, and hopefully I will probably pick this one up sometime soon because I'm just very excited for it. Next up, we have a book called The School for Good Mothers. This is another, I think, pretty recent release, like within the year or so, and this is a dystopian book, which I feel like it's been a hot second since I have had like a new dystopian on my radar, but this one sounds very interesting. So in this book, we're following a woman called Frida. She is a mother, her daughter's called Harriet, and I will just give you a little snippet from the synopsis because I feel like it explains it better than I'll be able to. So it says, the state has its eyes on mothers like Frida, ones who check their phones while their kids are on the playground, who let their children walk home alone. In other words, mothers who only have one lapse of judgment. Now a host of government officials will determine if Frida is a candidate for a Big Brother-like institution that measures the success or failure of a mother's devotion. Faced with the possibility of losing Harriet, Frida must prove that she can live up to the standards set for mothers, that she can learn to be good. So I think it's set in like this dystopian world where mothers are so highly scrutinized for their parenting that if they have like one lapse of judgment, they get sent to this Big Brother-like place to like learn to be better mothers. I don't know. It sounds like it could be really disturbing, but also really good. So I'm pretty excited for that one as well. The next book I have here is called The Ghost in the House by Sarah O'Leary. I think I heard about this book from Ariel Bissett, but I'm not 100% sure. And even though it has ghost in the title and kind of sounds like it would be a spooky read, I think this is actually more of like a contemporary comedic kind of book about a woman who is dead and is now haunting her house, and is kind of watching her husband and the rest of life move on without her. It sounded really interesting when Ariel, or whoever it was that I heard talk about it, was talking about it, so I thought I would add it to my Goodreads and see what it is all about. I think I'm only going to do a couple more of these because I don't want this video to be too long, so I think we'll do maybe 2 more books. The next one is The Book of Accidents by Chuck Wendig, who I think is mostly known for writing a lot of Star Wars books. It seems to be a lot of the other books that he has written, but this is a thriller book, I think, about a family, a husband, wife, and their son that move back to the town that the husband and wife grew up in, and some dark secrets are going down in the town. I don't really know. As we know, I don't read the synopsis much when it's like a thriller horror kind of book. And then the final book that I will talk about that I've added to my Goodreads recently is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. Stephanie Garber also wrote the Caraval trilogy, which I read the first 2 books in that trilogy, and I own the 3rd one, and I keep meaning to reread the first 2 before I read the 3rd one, but I just haven't gotten around to it yet. But I really enjoyed Caraval and Legendary, which is the 2nd book. So this book, we are following our main character called Evangeline, who learns that the love of her life will marry another. So to try and stop this wedding from happening, she strikes a deal with the Prince of Hearts. In exchange for his help, he asks for 3 kisses to be given at the time and place of his choosing. But after Evangeline's first promised kiss, she learns that bargaining with an immortal is a dangerous game, and that the Prince of Hearts wants far more from her than she's pledged. He has plans for Evangeline, plans that will either end in the greatest happily ever after or the most exquisite tragedy. I actually can't tell if this is supposed to be a retelling of something or not, but either way, it sounds like a cute, like, fantasy fairy tale kind of romantic story. It also looks like it's the first in a series because it says one of who knows how many, but this one just came out last year. So yeah, I don't know if I'm going to read this anytime soon. I think I will probably first go back and reread the Caraval trilogy and actually finish the 3rd book before I move on to any of her other works. So those are some of the most recent books that I have added to my Goodreads TBR. I also just realized that at some point during this video I have exposed my jammy pants, but that is okay. So yeah, leave me a comment down below. Let me know if you have read any of these books and what you thought of them, which ones on this list you think that I should prioritize and read first, or any that you think I should read for a video, like a vlog or something like that. And yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!